Hey everybody, my family and I are taking a road trip back to the place where my wife and I first fell in love. And we're gonna be retracing our steps to talk about how do you fall in love? And more importantly, how do you find someone who makes it easy to stay in love? We're gonna be going back to the exact spot where we first met, go to the coffee shop where we had our first not date, and then go hiking where we had our first real date, and we're bringing you along with us. At the end, we'll debrief and talk about the most important thing when it comes to falling in love and staying there. So, come along with us.
All right, guys, we made it back to the place where your mom and I fell in love. Hey, here we are.
So this is my lovely wife, Reagan, if you haven't met her before, and we are back on the campus of Harding University where we met in Searcy, Arkansas, and we are actually back out at some intramural football fields.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's where we met. How did we meet? Like, what do you remember about that night?
Yeah, it was in October, so in the fall, and I was with one of my childhood friends, and we came up to watch her boyfriend play intramurals just on this field right here.
Yep, and I was not her boyfriend. I was a friend of her boyfriend.
Yeah.
And we met and talked, and I called you the wrong name multiple times. In fact, later when I went back to look for you on Facebook, I couldn't find you. I called you Megan the whole night, so that was kind of embarrassing. Yeah.
Facebook was pretty new.
Facebook was very new. And
I had to like look at people's profiles.
I was looking for a redheaded Megan that was friends with any of my friends and couldn't find one, and I had to ask. So your name was Reagan, so that's why I couldn't find you. Yeah. Anyway, like, so we've talked about this night and like what it was about that night that kind of played a part in the overall story, and like I think really we boiled it down to there was a spark of curiosity, you know, like we asked, like, was it love at first night? It wasn't really love at first night. It was like, it was a spark of something. And I thought you were so pretty, and I like definitely wanted to know you more, but it was like, it went beyond physical attraction. Like we talked, we had chemistry, it was great. And so like, if we were to do this all over again without knowing each other already, or how we would tell somebody else, we would say like, look for somebody who sparks your curiosity, right? And I think that's a really, really big thing, and that can happen in many different ways. But I think one of the most important ways, like while physical attraction really is important, but like the conversation piece, I think was so good. Like I think that was a really huge part.
Yeah, and you were funny.
That was funny.
Somebody just like you, but then you walk on by, and I knew what.
There's where your parents were.
There's where they were. Did not look that nice.
Not at all.
No.
I totally knocked them over.
They knocked them over because they had rats and they were falling apart.
But between that night and the next one, several months passed.
A lot of months passed.
We didn't see each other.
No, we didn't see each other, but we tried to. In fact, this is where you worked. You remember that building right there? And my apartment was just around the corner from that, so I would make intentional walks past where you worked in hopes of seeing you. And
yeah, and several people
just didn't
said,
happen.
You should date Huston Oliver, but I never saw you. I didn't know how to make it happen.
How can you date somebody you can't see? Eventually, though, we did, the stars aligned, and we did go on a little date, but you don't refer to this as our first date. We went and got coffee.
Yeah, first coffee date.
Yeah, but it was an important part of the overall, our overall story.
Yeah.
Just wasn't a date.
It was just the first thing. We didn't eat dinner, It wasn't.
I think I paid for coffee though.
I'm sure you did.
So whether you call it our first date or just like the pre-date before the real date, that night was special. What made that night special?
I think that we were going just thinking we were going to get to know each other better, and we ended up talking for a really long time and got really into more.
Yeah, we closed the place down actually.
Sure, yeah.
And it's called Midnight
Oil.
Oil.
Late.
It was late.
Yeah, we talked for several hours, and we got a lot deeper pretty quickly, just in values that we shared and things we both wanted. And at that point it had been several months since we met, so it was I think I was 6 weeks away from graduating, and so we both knew that we kind of wanted to see where it was going and not just.
It wasn't casual.
Yeah.
We didn't have time to be casual, but I think you hit it. It's like shared values. We recognized that we had shared values, and if we were going to do it over again, we would want to get pretty quickly into finding out, do we share the same values about our lifestyle? And I guess a lot of this could be pretty deep for many people on even if you don't call this the first date, it's just, if you're looking for someone to fall in love with that makes it easy to stay in love with, you want to find somebody that shares your values. So after we did coffee, we knew there was a spark and we knew that we had shared values, but it wasn't until our first real date, we went hiking, that we actually say we fell in love.
Pretty serious first date.
It was a very serious first date. So let's grab the kids and we'll head out there. Yes, to the place where we had our official first date, and we hiked up a bluff way up there and sat for hours and talked about the future that we each wanted, and that's where we saw a lot of overlap. And so we're gonna hike up there together now and kind of reflect on what it was about that moment that was really such a turning point for us both.
Yeah, come on.
So we just hiked the bluff, and it was a lot different with kids this time.
Yes, we were very scared they were all gonna fall off the edge. And on the way back down, the guys went down a steeper trail and we went down the main thing, and me and my sister-in-law and our 3 little girls walked over a black snake, and it rattled, and we looked it up, and apparently it doesn't mean it's a rattlesnake, it just mimics rattlesnakes, but we were terrified.
Either way.
So I'm still a little shaky.
Either way, it was a little scary.
Yes.
But we had an opportunity to reflect on our first date.
Yeah.
And I remember that after that night, I got back and a friend had asked me how to go, and I told him, I said, I feel like I just had a date with my wife. Like it was like a really big thing on our first real date. You know, it was like, what happened that we both walked away feeling like, man, this is serious.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that we just talked so much. Even some little stuff, like Huston asked me, he was like, so what do you like? And we were like sitting up there, and I was like, and I said like sprinkles and fireworks, because I thought it'd be cool to watch fireworks off the bluff. And then
we were still getting to know each other.
Things like silly stuff like that. And then I was like, I don't know, what do you like? And he was like, you know, God and my family. And I was like, okay.
I asked
like
the
I just said
question
sprinkles
without knowing how I would even respond to it. Either way, we were still getting to know each other.
Yeah.
And we talked about like, we really talked about some deeper things.
Yeah, I think yeah, we just realized that we had kind of a shared vision for the future, and we were just really compatible as we kept talking, not in everything, but it just like each question led to the next thing, and we were like realized how alike we were in the areas that really mattered.
Yeah. Like we talked about some of the heroes that we both had in our lives, like the marriages that we looked up to, some that did not go well, that we didn't want to be like that, and we drew really close in all of that, and just kept talking. And again, you already said this, like we didn't agree on everything. In fact, we still don't agree on everything, but I think what we found is that like we could talk through big things and still agree to like walk through life together. I mean, that's still a huge part of staying in love.
Yeah, and I think we were so interested in each other, so we were interested to see what the other one thought about things.
Yeah. And the most important thing, and this is what I would say is like the most important thing that I walked away with, and you walked away with, that we might not have articulated it this way then, but that we articulate it this way now, is that we recognize that and agreed that life is not about us. Like we both were fortunate enough to be raised in environments where we recognize there is a creator, God, who created the world, and that he is supreme, he is sovereign, like he is God, and that we were created to please him, and that we wanted our marriage to be something that pleased him and that spread his goodness in the earth. And that's, I guess, what I would say to anybody who's watching right now, who's like, you want to fall in love and you want to have these moments, and you want to like have this like conversation with somebody, and maybe you're not there yet, but like to look for somebody who agrees that life is not about you. So after we finished this, hike and everything, we went and had, I took you to one of my childhood favorite restaurants, the Bulldog in Bald Knob, Arkansas.
Not so fancy.
We had strawberry shortcake, which is like a big deal there, and so we're gonna take the kids now back over there with some other family, and then we'll do a little debrief at the end, and maybe even share some of the questions that we talked about on this first date. So, come on. Okay, so we're back home and now we're gonna debrief a little bit. I think reflecting on this, like clearly there was the spark of curiosity that we had. There was the moment of recognizing we like shared values, and then recognizing that we actually shared a vision for the future, and it all just like kind of worked together. But I imagine that some people may be thinking, well, I'm so glad that all worked out so perfectly for you. The reality is that it didn't. In fact, you had a longer period of time before we met of discouragement about not falling in love. You wanted to, it just like hadn't happened yet.
Yeah.
So for anyone who's like in that phase right now, like what would you tell them?
I think first, just increase the probability that you'll meet somebody who shares your values by going to places that you think you would find somebody like that. Like I went to grad school and in hopes of finding somebody, and you know, whether it's a church or you know, anywhere that you could hang out, that you feel like you'll meet somebody who you're wanting to meet.
Yeah, you chose a grad school based on it being a place where more people shared your values.
Yeah.
I don't know, do you add anything to that?
I think another thing is just in today's world, there's so much online. And so I would just say, be really careful what you put out there, because we had just a friend recently was talking to us, and I've been trying to set him up with this girl, and he was like, man, I just don't know if we have that much in common, which was like really shocking to me, because I was like, no, y'all do. Like, I've known you both a long time and blah, blah, blah. And he was like when I asked him why, it was like a lot of the stuff that she was putting online that wasn't really her like values or her like really important things, and
things she was upset about on that day.
Yeah, it was, and like I realize now that like that does make you uncompatible with somebody if they're going to be loud online and you're not. But I think that it was sad because it was like, you know, dumb stuff about when you put your tree up or
politics,
grass fed, whatever.
Anything.
Yeah, like those things are important, but it's not like the most important thing. So like figure out what yours are and like get that out there, and because you don't want to miss somebody thinking that y'all could be compatible just because of the stancy stuff.
Yeah. I would also say to think about the person that you're looking for and think about what they are looking for and focus on being that person.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so a second question. Let's say you find somebody and you've got that spark and like you're really getting to know each other and you think you share values, but you're trying to figure that out. Like what type of questions, what topics do you cover early on to make sure that you really do share those values?
I think one is just figuring out who their heroes are or who they look up to, because that really shows what they're aspiring to be. And I feel like that can really help you get to know somebody.
Yeah. The people that you want to be like actually says a whole lot about what your values are. Second thing is just to think about like, what are the things that you're proud of, you know, and think about moments of your life that you're proud of those moments, because those also clearly communicate your values. And being able to find like where somebody has come from and how that shaped them says so much about the vision that they have for their future.
Yeah, and I think even asking that, like, what do you want? What is your vision? That will show. I mean, some of those things that are different than the stancy stuff, it's like, do you want kids? Like, that's really important if they do or not, you know?
Yeah,
it's like some of those really bigger questions.
What lifestyle do you want? And this was a really important thing for us, is what are you willing to change? You know, what I had several things that I like really wanted, and then over time realized I don't really want those things. Yeah. Those weren't like real like wishes for my future. Those were just things that I had kind of made up a little bit. Kind of back to your point
listen
about
and learn.
Stancy things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Learn from each other.
So question number 3 is there anything that you would caution against? You know, somebody has got that spark, they've got the shared values, and they're like feeling all the feels, right? Like what would we caution somebody against?
I think you should really make sure you get to know all the people around them. And I think it's easier in today's world to not do that and just kind of hole up by yourselves. But I think really get to know their families, you know, go with them to their holidays and go through the seasons and get to know their friends is really important.
Yeah, I think also trying to not make somebody else's story your own, because we romanticize stories, and we certainly wouldn't want anyone to do that with our story and go like, oh, well, that's the way it's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to have your own story, and it's not going to be It's probably not going to be smooth, and so don't try to recreate that. And I would also say this, like, be very, very careful about how physical you get early on in the relationship, because if you start to get physical early on in the relationship, it complicates things. And we have known so many people, it's complicated things early on and has really prolonged a relationship that really should have never taken root to begin with.
Yeah, very true.
Okay, so last question. What would we tell someone who is in a relationship, they've fallen in love, but maybe have started to fall out of love? Like, they've lost that loving feeling a little bit. Or people maybe who are still in love and they've seen others who've fallen out of love and they don't want to fall in love.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what would we say to that?
I think just to stay curious and keep talking after that. I think that we've had several friends that have said, that they've grown apart, and it's like, if you're constantly asking each other where they are and, what they're doing, you won't grow apart so much as like if you're asking them and they're asking you, you can kind of stay connected better. Yeah, I mean, curiosity really is the foundation in many ways of a relationship, because we've seen people who they had that spark of curiosity, they had their share of, they fell in love, everything was great, they made a commitment to each other, but over time they lost that curiosity, and when that curiosity leaves, eventually the connection goes, and when the connection's gone, eventually the commitment falls through as well. Which is a caution also to ask yourself the question, like, what is the wise thing to do in life? What is the wise thing to do? Because we've seen people who have gotten into some really bad situations, like that have really caused a rift in marriages, but it didn't start there. It started with one little unwise decision, hanging out with somebody of the opposite sex, and then the next thing you know, like, something bad has taken place. And then finally, I think this is so important. I'm going to reiterate what I've already said in the beginning, is to remember that life is not about you. Life is not about you. You have been created by God, who loves you, and he's created goodness, and we screw that up so much, but like, he's created us to serve and bring about his good pleasure, and like, serving him, we serve him by serving each other. If you focus on serving each other constantly, like, you grow together. And 13 years later for us, I would say our love is stronger, and like, our curiosity is greater, and a lot of that is because we've continued to serve each other. Now, for those of you who don't have a relationship with God or even know what you believe, like, we believe that God sent his son Jesus to the earth to show us his character, to represent him, so much so that he took on all of the wrong things that we have done and all the wrong things that you have done. He's taken the blame for that upon himself, and he has given us the opportunity to stand perfect before God, and that is an incredible thing. And if Jesus predicted his own death and resurrection and pulled it off, we can trust him that he really can bring goodness in our life. And maybe for those of you who you feel like your relationship's over, if God can resurrect a man from the dead, he can resurrect your marriage as well. So if you'd like to learn more about Jesus, I actually have another channel called Investigate Jesus, where I kind of talk about all things Jesus. It's really great. Or if you'd like to set up a one-on-one conversation, that'd be great as well. Thanks so much for watching this video, and we will see you in the next one. What's up, everybody? I'm here with Reagan on our first little video. Hey!
Why don't you say something to the camera instead of looking at me?
Hi!
What do you want to say? You just want to laugh.
You can't turn it on without telling me.
I did turn it on. Nobody's even watching. Okay, so what would we tell somebody who's kind of lost that love and feeling?
I'm not gonna say that love and feeling. That's stupid.
Okay, I'll say
it as a goo, but I'm not gonna say it in real life.